On March 31st, 2019, Nipsey Hussle was gunned down outside his Marathon clothing store. For years, we were left with a lot of unanswered questions. But now,
He was fighting the whole time. He fought hard. Up until he went to the hospital, he was still breathing and he was doing good.
I've got all the details, including new evidence that points to who may have ordered the hit. Let's break it down. The final moments. Picture this. It's a Sunday afternoon in the Crenshaw district, and the sun is shining on what should have been just another peaceful day in the neighborhood. Nipsey had pulled up to his Marathon store around 3:07 p.m. for what was supposed to be a quick run-through. Nothing major. But check this out. Fate had other plans brewing. Eric Holder and his female companion, who the streets later found out was Brianita Nicholson, happened to be at the same strip mall getting some grub. Both these cats were from the same set, the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips. Both came up in the same blocks. Both knew the same players. They had history, which makes what happened next even more foul. The conversation that sealed Nipsey's fate went down for about 4 minutes. And according to the streets, it wasn't even that deep. Herman Cowboy Douglas, one of Nip's day one homies, who was right there when it happened, he was dropping jewels, trying to look out for him like a big homie should. The whole exchange was casual, just two neighborhood cats having a regular conversation. But here's where it gets wild. Holder had the audacity to ask if Nipsey had heard his music, and the response was straight up negative. Now in the streets, that's a cold rejection, especially when you're talking to someone who's made it to the top of the game while you're still struggling to get your music heard. That ego bruising might have been the real trigger, not just the snitch talk. The timeline of what happened next shows how calculated this whole situation was. At 3:12 p.m., Holder Shorty took a flick with Nipsey and posted it on the gram. This innocent moment became crucial evidence later, proving that everything seemed cool before the darkness took over. Holder then went back to grab his food order, and they rolled to an adjacent parking lot where evil started brewing in this fool's mind. What makes this whole thing so sinister is how premeditated it was. Holder came back to the Marathon parking lot, loaded up his piece, and then proceeded to dump on Nipsey at least 10 times. This wasn't no heat situation. The attack was described as shooting Nipsey at least 10 times, maybe 11, with bullets hitting everything from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head, including the fatal shot to the back of his dome. But this coward wasn't done yet. After emptying his clips into Nipsey, Holder had the nerve to kick him in the head before bouncing. This final act of disrespect shows just how personal this hit was. This wasn't just about killing. It was about humiliation, about showing ultimate disrespect to someone who had shown him nothing but love. The aftermath was pure chaos in the hood. 2 other homies got hit in the crossfire. Shiremi Villanueva caught one in the chest, and Carrie Lean took a bullet to the back.
Tell me what happened.
Guy rolled up, Nipsey's out hanging, signing autographs or whatever. Guy rolled up, local guy, we know who he is and all that stuff.
The witness accounts from the streets paint a picture of a warrior who, even with death knocking at his door, was still fighting to stay alive. Shiremi Villanueva testified that he heard Hussle say, "He shot me. He shot me," as he was bleeding out on the concrete. These might have been some of his last words. A simple statement of shock that someone from his own hood, someone he knew personally.
Where were you when this happened?
I was with Nip prior to the guy. The guy was in the parking lot running around getting his food or whatever it may be. If you look at the tapes, I had my food in my hand the whole time, talking to Nipsey while we were in the parking lot.
The homie continues with the most heartbreaking detail.
I left for a matter of seconds, just left to go put my food down in the break room. Like, I'll be right back. Put my food down in the break room. By the time I hit the break room, I heard the gunshots.
The homie continues with the most heartbreaking detail.
Started running out, I heard some more gunshots, and I ran out. Nip was on the ground, and one guy was breaking off, fleeing the scene or whatever. And I ran over to Nip and held him,
The witness describes hearing multiple rounds going off, seeing the shooter flee like a coward, and then finding Nipsey laid out on the ground. The most important testimony relates to Nipsey.
Nipsey fought the whole way. He'd be breathing the whole time. had a pulse, in and out of consciousness, but he fought hard. I could just see it in his eyes. He was fighting.
Despite being shot multiple times, including that fatal shot to the back of his head, he kept fighting for his life. The medical examiner's report later confirmed that Hussle was pronounced dead at 3:55 p.m., 35 minutes.
He was fighting the whole time. He fought hard. Up until he went to the hospital, he was still breathing and he was doing good.
The interaction between the witness and the dying legend reveals the desperation and love of those.
He wasn't in a state that where he could talk, but you could tell he was fighting. He was trying to get his consciousness. You could tell he was fighting.
This moment captures the heartbreaking reality of those final minutes. A loyal homie sitting with a dying.
So I just sat there and prayed with him and just kept praying. And when it looked like he wanted to doze back, I wake up, Nip, wake up, bro, wake up.
The story doesn't end with the shooting. The immediate response from Nipsey's family shows the depth of love and desperation in those crucial moments. Hussle's brother, Samuel Ascadome, got the call about the shooting and rushed to the scene, running red lights as he sped down Sloan Avenue. When he arrived, he found his brother laid out on his back, bleeding heavily with his head tilted to the side. Following instructions from a 911 operator, Samuel performed CPR, pressing on Hussle's chest to keep him breathing. The image of a brother performing CPR on his dying sibling in a parking lot, surrounded by chaos and onlookers, captures the personal tragedy behind this public loss. A chilling scream erupted when paramedics lifted Hussle onto a stretcher, revealing the extent of his injuries, including the gunshot wound to the back of his head. This moment, witnessed by a crowd that had gathered, marked the transition from desperate hope to the realization of an inevitable tragedy. The medical response was swift and professional, but the damage was too severe. Paramedics inserted a tube down Hussle's throat and in his arm. But despite these efforts, Hussle was pronounced dead at 3:55 p.m., 35 minutes after the shooting. His death certificate obtained by TMZ listed gunshot wounds to the head and torso as the cause of death, noting that he fought to survive for those 35 minutes. The trial revelations murder trial of Eric Holder Jr. began on June 15, 2022, almost 3 years after Nipsey Hussle got laid down. And what came out of that courtroom was a devastating picture of jealousy, premeditation, and the deadly consequences of disrespect in head culture. The trial wasn't just about getting justice for Nipsey's murder. It exposed the whole twisted web of relationships, motivations, and circumstances that led to one of hip-hop's most shocking betrayals. The trial had been pushed back multiple times due to court shutdowns and Holder's first attorney, Christopher Darden, backing out because of death threats. This detail alone shows how deep the street's emotions ran about this case. When the trial finally kicked off, it provided the most detailed breakdown yet of what went down that Sunday afternoon and what was going through the mind of the cat who pulled the trigger. Eric R. Holder Jr., then 32, was facing 1 count of first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 2 counts of assault with a firearm, and possession of a firearm by a felon. The prosecution, led by Deputy District Attorney John McKinney, was going to prove that this was a calculated, premeditated murder driven by a toxic combination of perceived disrespect and professional jealousy. The prosecution's opening statement painted a picture of a man who had time to think about his actions and still chose violence. McKinney argued that Holder clearly thought about what he was going to do before he did it, pointing to his return to the parking lot after the snitching conversation as evidence of intent. This wasn't no heat-of-the-moment situation. It was a deliberate choice to commit murder. The evidence presented during the trial was overwhelming. Multiple eyewitnesses and surveillance footage from local businesses backed up Holder's actions, making the case against him bulletproof. The prosecution had video evidence of Holder's arrival, the shooting itself, and his departure, creating an undeniable record of his guilt. But the most damning evidence came from the testimony of Brianita Nicholson, the female who had driven Holder to and from the scene. Nicholson, who was granted immunity and testified as a key witness, claimed she had no idea about Holder's intentions and only learned about the shooting from the news. Her testimony provided crucial details about Holder's state of mind and actions both before and after the shooting. According to Nicholson's testimony, she heard Holder say, "You're through," to Hussle before opening fire, to which Hussle reportedly responded, "You got me." These final words, if accurate, revealed the moment when Nipsey realized he was about to be killed by someone he knew and had shown love to. The testimony also revealed the calculated nature of Holder's actions after the shooting. Nicholson testified that Holder told her, "Drive before I slap you," as they fled the scene. This command reveals a man who was not only capable of murder, but who was also prepared to threaten violence against anyone who didn't immediately comply with his escape plan. The most revealing aspect of the trial was the testimony about the conversation that allegedly triggered the shooting. Herman "Cowboy" Douglas, one of Nip's closest homies and a store employee, testified that the conversation between Hussle and Holder seemed chill and that Hussle's tone wasn't aggressive, but rather looking out for Holder like a big homie should. This testimony contradicted the defense's claim.
Yeah, not as tight as me and Nipsey, but I want to say 06 through 09, cause I know I was smoking dope pretty tough. I had the whole hood on fire, and he was one of the little youngsters at the spot serving.
Cowboy reveals that Holder was known around the way, but not as someone particularly close to Nipsey. He was described as one of the little youngsters who was working the block during Cowboy's own struggle with addiction. This context helps explain the dynamic between the two men and suggests that Holder may have felt overshadowed by Nipsey's success. The prosecution's case also revealed
Well, to a certain extent, he was jumping out. He was really looking for problems. Honestly, in my heart, I know for sure he didn't come near looking for Nip. You know what I mean? He came to the hood wanting some problems for sure. You know what I mean?
This suggests that Holder was actively seeking confrontation in the days before the shooting. The witness describes him as jumping out and looking for problems, painting a picture of someone who is agitated and possibly looking for a reason to engage in violence.
Jumping out with 2 pistols, you're gonna find problems. I don't care. Any hood you jump out. You know what I mean? So yeah, he was jumping out, a lot of people putting a lot of emphasis saying Nipsey called him a snitch.
This reveals that Holder was strapped with 2 pistols and actively confrontational in the days before the shooting. The trial also revealed details about Nipsey's state of mind.
We just did the DJ Khaled video a couple days prior, and I'm sitting there like, man, you finally made it. I think maybe I don't know if it was 2 days before that, I seen him and Lauren London on the 4-wheeler.
So Nipsey was in a good space both personally and professionally in the days before his death. He had just completed a video with DJ Khaled, a major mainstream
So the next day I come to work, that in the parking lot on the 4-wheeler, it's 7 in the morning, that nigga sitting in the parking lot rolling them up a backwood. I said, he bored, he ain't got nothing to do.
Collaboration that represented the peak of his career. So the next day I come to work, that in the parking lot on a 4-wheeler, 7 in the morning, that __, sitting in the parking lot rolling him up a back wheel. I said, you bored? You ain't got nothing to do. This account shows Nipsey in a relaxed, playful mood in the days before his death. The image of him on a 4-wheeler at 7 in the morning, described as being bored because he had taken time off from his usual relentless hustle, makes the tragedy even more devastating. He was finally taking time to enjoy the success he had worked so hard to achieve. The prosecution's case also established the premeditated nature of the attack through the timeline of events. The prosecution argued that the 9-minute gap between the conversation and the shooting was evidence of premeditation, citing Holder's actions of leaving the scene, arming himself, and returning to shoot Hussle. This timeline became crucial in distinguishing between first-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter. The defense, led by public defender Aaron Jansen, tried to argue that this was a heat-of-passion killing. Jansen claimed that Holder was emotionally triggered by the snitching accusation and didn't have time to cool off, seeking a voluntary manslaughter charge instead of first-degree murder. However, this defense was undermined by the evidence of Holder's calculated actions and the testimony that no direct accusation was made. The trial also revealed disturbing details about the attack itself. According to the prosecution, Holder shot Hussle at least 10 times, possibly 11, with bullets striking him from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head, including a fatal shot to the back of his head. The sheer number of shots and the fact that they covered Hussle's entire body suggests an execution-style killing rather than a spontaneous act of violence. But perhaps the most damning evidence was the testimony about what happened after the shooting. The prosecution emphasized that Holder kicked Hussle in the head after shooting him, describing this as evidence of the very personal nature of the attack. This additional act of violence committed against a man who was already dying reveals the depth of Holder's rage and the personal nature of his animosity. The trial also exposed the role of jealousy and professional frustration in the murder. Nikini suggested that Holder's lack of success as a rapper, contrasted with Nipsey's rising fame and Grammy nomination, fueled jealousy. Holder's stage name was Fly Mac, and his limited recognition in the music scene was highlighted as a potential source of resentment. This aspect of the case reveals how professional jealousy and personal inadequacy can combine with cultural factors to create a deadly mix. Holder wasn't just angry about being called a snitch. He was angry about his own failures in Nipsey's success. The conversation about snitching may have been the trigger, but the underlying cause was deeper and more personal. The prosecution's evidence was so overwhelming that the defense's strategy seemed almost hopeless from the beginning. The trial, which began on June 15, 2022 after delays, was expected to last approximately 2 weeks, and the jury deliberated for 6 hours over 2 days. The speed of the deliberation suggests that the evidence was clear and convincing to everyone in that courtroom. On July 6, 2022, the jury found Holder guilty of first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted voluntary manslaughter instead of attempted murder for the bystanders, 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, and possession of a firearm by a felon. The verdict was a vindication of the prosecution's case and a clear rejection of the defense's heat of passion argument. The prosecution's presentation of surveillance footage was particularly damaging to the defense. Nikini showed jurors videos and photos of the shooting, capturing Holder's arrival, the act itself, and his departure while wearing a red shirt and bandana carrying both a semi-automatic gun and a revolver. This visual evidence left little room for doubt about Holder's identity or actions. The trial ultimately revealed that this was not a case of street justice or gang retaliation, but a personal act of violence motivated by jealousy, inadequacy, and rage. The evidence showed that Holder made a conscious decision to kill Nipsey and that this decision was driven by his own personal failures rather than any legitimate provocation. The controversies and unanswered questions from the streets persisted. While Eric Holder Jr.'s conviction brought legal closure to Nipsey Hussle's murder case, it definitely didn't silence the whispers, theories, and controversies that have continued to bubble up from the streets about the death of the neighborhood king. In the years since the trial, new allegations have surfaced, old questions have resurfaced, and the hip-hop community has been forced to deal with uncomfortable truths about the circumstances surrounding Nipsey's death. From prison testimonies to social media revelations, from conspiracy theories to family disputes, the story of Nipsey Hussle's murder extends far beyond the courtroom verdict. The most explosive recent development came in 2025 with the arrest of Eugene Big O Henley on federal RICO charges. Big U, a well-known figure in Los Angeles and former shot caller for the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips, was indicted on 43 federal charges, including RICO violations, murder, extortion, fraud, and human trafficking. While these charges don't directly relate to Nipsey's murder, they have reignited speculation about Big U's potential involvement in the case. The allegations against Big U regarding Nipsey's murder have been particularly explosive. Former Death Row rapper SKG made claims in a March 2025 TMZ interview that Big U definitely has something to do with Hussle's murder. She alleged that Big U was an exploitative figure who terrorized the Crenshaw community and may have orchestrated the killing. However, these claims remain unconfirmed and no federal charges connect Big U to Hussle's murder. The theory of Big U's involvement has been fueled by several factors, including alleged business disputes and past tensions. Posts on social media have claimed that Big U signed Nipsey to a 10-year contract in 2009, and tensions arose when Nipsey declined to resign in 2018, shortly before his death. Some have suggested that this contract dispute provided a motive for the murder, though no concrete evidence supports this theory.
I'm with a few homies. I'm with a homie from 60s too.
Yeah.
But he's in a cage though. He was PC'd up. But he was in the last most shit. Spit on.
They were pissing and spitting on him in the bus?
Hell yeah, squirting piss on his ass.
Somebody like him, like, can't be, like, he has to not be in general population.
Adding fuel to these theories was testimony from rapper Loose Cannon, who was arrested alongside Big U in the RICO case. Cannon appeared on the No Jumper podcast and suggested that Big U had prior knowledge of Hussle's murder, claiming Big U knew Eric Holder was going to kill Hussle 30 minutes before the shooting. However, this episode was reportedly removed after Big U issued a cease and desist order, and these statements lack corroborating evidence. The most disturbing aspect of these allegations is the suggestion that Nipsey's murder was not the result of a spontaneous confrontation, but part of a broader pattern of violence and intimidation. The RICO case against Big U focuses on a pattern of criminal activity, including the 2021 murder of aspiring rapper Ron Williams in Las Vegas. The similarities between the two cases, both involving artists who allegedly created diss tracks, have led some to speculate about connections. However, it's crucial to note that Big U has consistently denied involvement in Hussle's murder. In a 2019 Vlad TV interview, he called such rumors the dumbest __ in the world. And during a 2021 Drink Champs appearance, he expressed frustration at conspiracy theories, noting his promotion of Hussle's album, Victory Lap. The prison experiences of Eric Holder Jr. have also become a source of controversy and speculation. Multiple accounts have emerged describing the violence and humiliation Holder has faced behind bars, providing a glimpse into the harsh reality of being imprisoned for killing a beloved community figure. This testimony reveals the extreme measures taken by other inmates to express their disgust and anger toward Holder. The fact that inmates were able to urinate and spit on him despite security measures shows the intensity of the hatred he faces in prison. The prison violence against Holder has been confirmed by official reports. During the trial, it was revealed that Holder was attacked with a razor in a jail holding cell, requiring staples in his head and briefly delaying the trial. This attack highlighted the dangerous position Holder was in as the accused killer of a beloved community figure. This observation highlights how killing a celebrated artist creates enemies far beyond the local community. Yeah, you're definitely a target. People might want to test you. The conspiracy theories surrounding Nipsey's murder have also continued to evolve and spread, particularly on social media platforms. The most prominent conspiracy theory ties his death to a documentary he was reportedly working on about Dr. Sebi, a Honduran herbalist who claimed to cure diseases like AIDS and cancer. Social media platforms saw widespread speculation that the government or pharmaceutical companies targeted Hussle to suppress information about Dr. Sebi's alleged cures. These theories gained traction despite the lack of evidence, reflecting the historical and social context of the African American community, where centuries of systemic oppression and documented abuses have fostered deep distrust of government and institutional authority. The proliferation of these theories shows how communities process grief and trauma when official explanations seem inadequate.